Hello, I'm Taylor, and this is Taylor's Tales. This is the pilot episode for a YouTube channel that I'm trying to start, and this YouTube channel is going to be based around me just telling various tales that I have. Most of them should be relatively funny to at least some people. They're going to range from things that happened a really long time ago to relatively recently. They could have happened in the real world, in a video game, in a role-playing game like Dungeons & Dragons, but the point being, it's me telling a story, and I try and keep it in layman's terms so everyone will understand it no matter what. At some point in the future, I may be adding other segments where I actually talk about serious things that aren't just me telling something that's goofy when I want to rant about something, things like that. But that'll be completely named something else. It'll still be on the channel, but it won't be under the Tales from Taylor heading. But because this is a pilot episode, I should probably tell a story. So I'm going to tell one that I'm familiar with, and personally, it's one of my favorites. And sure, most of my friends have heard it by now, and they're the only ones who are going to be watching this channel. But whatever. So this story I like to refer to as Ben's Tea Time. It is the story of my friend Ben making his first cup of tea in college. So, this is the start of our second year of college. This is like the second day. So this is when we're all like, okay, we need to kick all our bad freshman habits. We need to start eating healthier. We need to start drinking healthier, whatever. So everyone at this point had tried to kick soda, including Ben. So soda-free, no caffeine, normal. And so it's around 5:30 p.m., second day. And Ben and I are like, you know what, we're hungry, all of our friends are gone, let's just go eat. So we walk the 2 minutes over to our dining hall. And after waiting for a half hour, more like 15 minutes, but the point is, the line was really long, when at the time we went, it shouldn't be, but there's a bunch of freshmen there. Freshmen are like, yay, we're gonna eat early today, blah, blah, blah. I hate freshmen sometimes. You'll get that in a lot of my videos. But anyway, so the freshmen made us wait a really long time to actually finally get into the dining hall. We had to wander around until table was finally vacated. We finally sit down. At this point, Ben and I are both kind of grumpy. And to top it all off, Ben's tired. So Ben looks at me, he's like, you know what? I'm going to make a cup of Earl Grey tea to get myself some energy because I'm not going to drink any Pepsi today. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And at this point, I'm kind of laughing at myself on the inside. I'm like, I've never seen Ben make a cup of tea before. Let's watch what he does. So he goes to walk over to where the tea is to grab his Earl Grey packet. I go back to eating my dinner, nom nom nom. And then Ben comes back like a minute later, which is a really long time. The tea boxes are like 10 feet away. And he slams down, bam, a pack of green tea. And I'm like, Ben, that's not Earl Grey. He's like, I know, the freshman took all the goddamn teas. So at this point, I'm already laughing like, wow, this is going great for Ben. So then he takes his packet, he opens it angrily, and he takes it and he goes and walks away. And he comes back a few minutes later, and this time I see him holding a cup. Not a mug, but a cup, like the kind you drink water out of. So it's steaming out the top, and there's a tea bag in it. I'm like, Ben, that's not a mug, that's a cup. And he turns to me, he's like, I know, the goddamn freshman took all the mugs. And at this point, I'm laughing like, this is just going great. So Ben, he's sitting there, and about 30 seconds later, he goes to take a drink out of it and goes, ow! And I'm like, what? Ben, what are you? That's hot tea, that's boiling water. He's like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to drink it then? I'm like, you're supposed to let it steep and cool, and you're not supposed to just drink it the second you put the bag in. He's like, oh, okay. So at this point, he waits like a few minutes, like 2 or 3. And at this point, he takes another drink, and he's like, this tastes terrible. Luckily, he didn't burn himself again. And I'm like, yeah, Ben, it's green tea, and you're not used to it. And he's like, fine, I'll go figure out how to make it taste better. And then he leaves his tea there, and he just walks away for a second. I'm like, is he going to come back with honey? Like, that at least makes sense. But no, he comes back this time, not with a cup, but this time with a mug of milk. So he sits down, and he's sitting there. He has a mug of milk in one hand and a cup of tea in the other. Mug, cup, mug, cup. And he drinks some of the milk, and he's like, okay. And I'm like, Ben, that's milk. And he's like, I know, I've seen you put milk in your tea before. I'm like, yeah, but not green tea. He's like, oh, well. So he's sitting there, and he has mug, milk, mug, tea, mug, tea, mug, tea into mug. And I'm like, Ben, no, Ben, that's not what you're supposed to do. He's like, what? I'm like, you put the milk in the tea, and he's like, oh. And then he takes the cup of slightly teed up milk, and then the now half-empty cup of tea, and pours the milk back into it. And at this point, he tries to take a drink of the tea and just spits it straight back into it. Like, that's terrible. I'm like, I know, that's green tea and that's milk. He's like, ugh. And then he tries it with this cup of 90% milk and 10% tea, does the same exact thing. At this point, he's pissed off. He's slightly embarrassed because of all this fuck-up. And he turns to me, he's like, you are not going to tell anyone about this. I'm going to give you $5 and I'm gonna go hide this evidence. So he stands up, picks up all of his mess, runs over to where you put down your dishes, and puts them away. And then he comes back, but at this point, little did he know, our friend Natalie had been entering the dining hall, and she had already sat down before he came back, and I already had finished telling the story to her by the time he got back. In hindsight, I don't know why it took him so long to actually put his dishes away. But at this point, he sits down, he just looks at me angrily, and then Natalie looks at him, points her finger, and just laughs for a solid 15-20 seconds. And he just looks at me, he's like, I hate you, and I'm never having tea again. And that's the story of Ben's Tea Time. Now, that was probably terribly told, probably didn't make anyone laugh, but it's a pilot episode, and I wanted to see how it sounds when I record things, and I'm going to upload this anyway. So, if you guys actually enjoyed this, or you're interested in hearing more interesting stories than this, then subscribe. I'll start telling other stories. So, next week will probably be one from Dungeons & Dragons, and it may or may not be a little raunchier than this one. But it might also be shorter, depending on which story it is. But hey, I'll do the bullshit. Like, subscribe.